This is episode 111 of our Road to Unicum, and today I review the Object 140. This is a Tier 10 Russian medium tank in World of Tanks, and been asked to review this quite a bit, especially with the recent review of the 430U. So I'm going to contrast those tanks. We're going to look at a pair of Tier 10 battles, starting with Fisherman's Bay and then Highway. Now, the 140 was king of the hill for a long time. It was the meta tank 5 years ago, and it's really only been through the addition of other tanks, especially the reward tanks like the very broken Object 907, that the 140 has lost a little bit of its shine. But I still think this is an excellent tank because it has a bunch of very synergistic mechanics. So it's got a low profile, excellent camo values, so it's very capable of spotting and playing the vision game. It has a good top speed of 55 kilometers an hour, and it's not that necessarily that the 55 is fast, but it can get up to that pretty quickly because it has favorable terrain resistances and good horsepower to weight ratio. The gun handling on this is excellent. The dispersion values are very low, so even when moving the turret or the hull, you can see that the aiming reticle very quickly closes. This STB1 is making a big mistake. He's pushing too late to that D2 area. You either need to go there immediately, and if you can get to E2, there's a bunch of really good bushes. Although I think the STB1, I wouldn't recommend going there with this matchmaking. And then with that good handling, you can see I can follow the 105 as it traverses to the west and land a really nice shot. That's what you want to do against the 105s is, I can get the first shot advantage if I'm sitting behind a bush and he's driving out in the open, right? Because the camo game in that case is going to favor me, and I have the amazing shell velocity over 1,500 meters per second. So, this gun is really good at shooting targets on the move, snapshotting, and hitting targets far away. And so you'll see here, their 105 really is the tank that I like to shoot whenever he makes himself visible. But I'm keeping an eye on those tanks that are in the middle of the map because depending on where they are with respect to the buildings, I might be able to squeeze a shot in between. The tank also has really fast reload. You can see here about 5.5 seconds with a rammer Brothers in Arms, and so the tank has really good DPM as well. And while the alpha value of 320 is definitely on the low side, the fact that you can fire so often gives you plenty of opportunities to dish damage out, and most importantly, deal module damage such as tracking tanks. Like, take a look at this. Look how good this gun handling is, and that shell travels in the blink of an eye over 400 meters away to hit that EBR, who was driving away from me in a straight line. And it's helpful to take a look at the terrain. The EBR is going north on the one lane, so that gives me a window of trying to hit him when he's not moving laterally from my perspective. Okay, so one thing you're probably wondering is how does this tank compare to the 430U? And so the 430U has a much better frontal hull armor profile, right? The 140s is somewhere around 200 meters effective, whereas the 430U's upper plate is all the way up to 275 millimeters effective. And if you're angling the hull, you can increase that value even more, right? The side hull for the 140 is thinner than the side hull armor of the 430U, but like the 430U, it's angled in a reverse slope. So tanks that are shooting at your sides, if you are sidescraped, will be auto-bouncing if they're firing AP and APCR for most of the guns in this game. The side armor on the 140 is just thick enough to create that auto-bounce. It's like 57 millimeters thick, right? Some people have said, the 140, the top of the turret is weak, and while the two cupolas are penetratable, as is certain parts of the turret roof, those are pretty hard targets to hit, especially if the 140 is moving or wiggling. For the most part, I find the turret protection on the 140 to be extremely reliable, right? So you may be wondering, why is it that the general population seems to perform better in the 430U than the 140, right? Given that the 140 has better mobility, far better gun handling, better DPM, things like that. And the 430U, frankly, is just extremely forgiving, right? With that upper frontal hull armor, that's the main thing. But if you look at the high-end clans, when they're doing clan wars, they don't bring 430Us to clan wars. They'd prefer to bring 140s, and obviously above the 140s, they like to bring the award tanks, such as the 907, which is overpowered because it's got really great frontal hull armor, and it is got the DPM of a lot of the RU mediums. Now, you notice there the Striv just got shelled, right? He was complaining about this map earlier. Part of the problem is, as a tank that has to enter siege mode to do, get gun repression and DPM, if he's firing from this H-ridge here, he has to back up either slowly in siege mode or exit siege mode and then pull back. So this really isn't a good place for Striv, right? He should be further back another row, probably over, for example, by J2 if he wants to snipe. And then whenever I get spotted here, notice I am moving laterally forward east to west, right, to try to make it more difficult for their arties to target me. They have to guess where I'm going to be. So the other reason why the 430U, aside from the poor gun handling and DPM, isn't brought to clan wars is that in competitive contexts like clan wars and like, the ranked battles, a lot of premium ammo tends to get fired, right? And the RU mediums have a really, high premium ammo penetration values with heat of 340, right? And that will knife right through the upper hull armor of the 430U. So the 430U, in a world of a lot of gold ammo, has that great hull armor, doesn't matter as much, and it has poor gun handling and low DPM. Like, I find that having recently picked up the 140 again after a week and a half after playing the 430U, I prefer the 140. It's got better acceleration. It is far more reliable as a damage dealer, and you can still side scrape with this tank because the side armor, hull armor, is angled. Now you notice our CAX, our Centurion AX, pushed down to D1. If he's careful, he can stay alive. What he's got to be worried about is getting shot at from the tanks in the middle of the map, over by E5, E6, and getting hit by their arty. Now, some people like to make a one-line push. It generally only works if you commit to it very early in the game, and preferably if you go there with one or two tanks that have some capacity to brawl in terms of armor, right? The CAX went pretty late, and the problem is as you're moving up or down the one lane, you're going to get outspotted by tanks that have the first spot advantage and therefore the first shot advantage because they are sitting behind bushes, right? But we managed to take down that STV-1, really not very good positioning on his part. And that little area over by E2, I think I've covered this in other videos when I'm playing light tanks, is a fantastic area to spot from, right? It's on the west side of the map from the north spawn, very powerful. But as a medium tank, in most cases medium tanks tend to be a little bit too big to sit up there. Okay, their FV just took out our Centurion AX, but you may have noticed one of my platoon mates, Indignant Beaver, he has rotated clockwise and is now pushing up the one lane, right? And what he sees is opportunity. He's making a push at the right time. So it can be very dangerous to push early on the one lane, but once they're thinned out a bit, and we can see where most of their tanks are deployed, so they've got 4 mediums in the middle ridge of the map, along with the EBR, who is one-shottable because we landed 2 shots on him earlier. And so this is a really good time to be able to push up. And the nice thing is this Leopard is sitting too far back. In my opinion, he should be over by B1. There's some buildings with a bush, that magical trifecta of good, field of view, hard cover with adjacent bushes, right? I always talk about that's the combination you want to find, but because he's sitting back at A1 and being too snipey, this is allowing us to push up and reach the C and C1, D1 area, right? Because once you've crossed E1, F1, that area, you're pretty safe from getting shot. Now, the most important thing, and I've been emphasizing this so much, is to consider the perpendicular game. Okay, it looks like they're 140 rotated counterclockwise and is now over in A1, right? But the main threat here is taking damage from the middle of the map, and that's why I was going to tell this 430 to back up. I'm clicking on the middle of the map to be like, dude, you're going to get shot from your side, right? And that really is the the interplay that you see on a lot of maps, where if you push a flank, the tanks at mid can shoot on you and vice versa, right? And so anytime I fire on the 140 or Leopard, it's highly likely I'm going to get spotted. But this 140 here, this enemy, he's making the classic mistake. He's choosing damage over position. He's sitting sideways. He should be side scraping. If he wants to shoot at me, he should be side scraping, so I cannot penetrate him with AP or APCR, right? And instead he's giving me an easy side shot where I don't have to worry about the angle, the fact that his side hull armor is angled and side scrapes really well. And so what we really want to do is just whenever we can work shots in on the tanks in front of us, and whenever the tanks in middle to my right, southeast, are exposed, take shots on them. Right? But you got to be careful here. Whenever you make these shots, I got to assume, so turning my turret to the right, facing back toward that 430U, and then dipping underneath this ridge. Now, I am still slightly exposed, so he may, that's a far shot to be honest though. I think maybe the sliver of my upper hull is visible. I get hit by Artie, but the Artie should be firing on us. We are a big threat to getting these tanks, the 140 and the Leopard, killed, and then once we do that, we can move down onto the Batchat Artie. But now that their tanks in mid are gone and we've got mid control, now I can focus on the tanks in front of me. I don't have to worry about eating perpendicular fire. And that's really like this. In so many maps, you'll find people just focusing on things directly in front of them. And you have to be able to play two directions, what's in front of you, what's off to the side. Make sure you're being thoughtful about both in terms of your positioning, right? And because I've been careful with my positioning, I still have, over 700 hit points. I'm pushing down now. Once our Progetto 65 committed, I needed to come up and support him. And their 140 either has the choice of trying to turn his turret towards me, which he did, which gives the Progetto the easy kill shot, or vice versa. Their tanks in mid really, mid's very strong on this map. There's a lot of good reasons to go there. Like from the south spawn, you can either go over to the H23 area where I was, or you can go over towards F6. Both locations work. If you go F6 early, you have the benefit of being able to spot their tanks, their slower tanks as they're going southeast towards city, potentially track them in the open, giving something for your arties to fire at. And there was something really important that I didn't touch on the very beginning of this battle, which is our Super Conqueror went to G1, G2, right? And the thing is, like, he's so far forward, and while he has good view range, he doesn't have good camo values, being a heavy. And he took a lot of damage early, and then as a reaction to that, he then moved back to like J2, where he camped, right? And so you have to respect vision, especially in tier 10 battles, because he was too far forward, ate lots of unnecessary damage, and then pulled back. And that's why it's like a heavy, a lot of times you shouldn't be in a place where a light tank or medium tank or a tank destroyer would typically spot, right? And it's not that you can't see, it's the problem is that you can be seen. And that Super Conqueror ate so much early damage, it really limited what he could do the rest of the way. Okay, we're going to take a look at highway here, and it's really important for both sides to try to win A1. The southwest spawn does have a bit of an easier approach to A1, especially because there's snipers that are along the E1, E2, F1, F2, have better shots on our tanks from the northeast spawn. If we try to get up onto A1, they can put flanking shots, perpendicular shots on us. I do really like what our Batchat is doing. So he is obviously going to be loaded by the time he gets to the top of that hill. He's going to push into the trees. Now you can only do this if you're in a really fast tank, right? But he gets up there, he's not spotted. Now he's going to have the first spot and the first shot advantage. And what we're really looking for is that guy right there, that Progetto. That's their most dangerous tank in terms of burst, right? And so we've got to move up here and support our Batchat because he's in danger of getting killed. And it's just a matter of putting 3 guns on the Progetto and taking him out early. And then there's 62A, who's at C1. He makes a mistake. He's neither all the way in nor all the way back. He's in no man's land, right? And so you either got to commit or not commit. The worst thing you can do is kind of waffle as far as what you're going to do and then try to exit late. If he's going to run away, you got to run before you need to run. You guys always hear me talk about this. And notice right here, turn my hull just so that I can angle that side hull armor in case he fires to increase the probability that I'll bounce a shot, right? And he misses. But obviously he caught me there in a moment out in the open, but I quickly angled my hull about 25 degrees pointing to the right just to maximize my chance of not taking damage. And you got to think the Gorilla doesn't have the luxury of aiming in on me. He knows there are 3 mediums there, plus we've got tank destroyers out in field, plus we've got an Artie. So he's got to take a rush shot, which favors me. I'd switched over to high explosive, and I think the really annoying thing about high explosive is you can detonate your high explosive on tracks, wheels, guns, like all kinds of things. And I think, I used high explosive, which is what a lot of people would do, but if I had to look over all the games that I played on Watt and all the times that I switched over to high explosive, hoping that it would enable me to deal more damage and then only to watch it not pen and only do partial damage, I think I would have been better if I just stuck with AP and APCR in general, unless the target is really big, like a Scorpion or a Waffenträger TD or an Arty, that's really large. Okay, so we obviously need to push down the one lane as much as possible. Now, part of the problem is their 140, who's camping back by their cap, is in a pretty tough position for us, right? So if we push forward to go after the Striv, we are going to be giving up flanking shots to that 140, and he will have the first shot advantage because he's sitting back, so he just dropped from our vision. We can't see him, right? If our RD is smart, he would be, in my opinion, aiming at the 103. The faster that Striv dies, the faster we can focus on taking out the 140 and the RD. And so, to some extent, we just need to make that decision there. RD just landed a beautiful shot on the Striv, just as I was talking about. And now that our Striv has come up here, the 62A and I are rushing this Striv. And right here, I just put this on auto aim and fire. Maybe a better choice would have been, shoot him in the track so he can't move. Certainly if you've got heat, that'll go right through the upper hull, since heat is far, far less likely to bounce compared to AP and APCR. Okay, and then I switch here to high explosive. I should have clicked on that like 3 seconds ago because I'm not ready to fire, but that's okay. I still put one shell into the RD. But man, that 5.5 second reload is just superb. So I think, the 140 is still a very capable tank. It's not the top dog like it used to be. There have been some very imbalanced tier 10 reward tanks that have been introduced to the game. And I think, for example, both the 907 and the T95 Chieftain and the 279E are just terrible tanks for balance in this game. They're way too strong for what they're able to do. Okay, so there's a couple things that we could do here. It was clear from a long time ago that we stood a pretty good chance of losing City badly, just in terms of the number of tanks that they had left. But we've got them circled in now. You could definitely argue that the more safe thing to do, if you're ever not sure, not feeling confident, you should just cap, right? Just if we put 2 tanks on here, there's no way they're going to get all the way down into the valley and all the way back up to reset. But I was feeling pretty good about our chances, especially since I'm still at over 1100 hit points, and if any of them are going to come try to challenge the cap, they're going to have to get by us. And that's why sometimes with the cap, instead of, for example, having 2 people sit on the cap, in some cases it's better to have 1 person sit on the cap and 1 person to be a screener to hold them back. It really depends on the situation, but in this case, I'm going into City because I'm pretty sure that given that we have them surrounded in City for the most part, I'll be able to help take them out. And then here it's like, again, angling that side hull armor and trying to, force the JPE to aim in, right? And the thing is, when you're facing Russian mediums, you have a high alpha, long reload gun, you want to be very selective when you fire, because once you fire, then the RU medium, like the 140, is just going to keep poking at you and shoot you. Like, here's a great example right here. Okay, get the tracking shot, 60 TP, slowly rotating his turret because he's a heavy. Put another tracking shot, and then watch this. There he panic shots, and he hits the corner of the wall. And by doing that, I can just sit here and milk another 2 shells into him, right? So, if you've got the high caliber, slow reloading, big hitting gun, you should use the threat of your gun to prevent the RU medium from attacking you, and make pretty darn sure if you're going to fire that you're going to penetrate that shot, right? So, for example, if the 60 TP hadn't fired and hit the building, I wouldn't have got those last 2 shots on him. If I tried to poke around the corner to fight him, he would have dealt 750 damage to me, and then the Wizzy would have killed me, right? In this case, I'm trying to side scrape because I don't know if they're still looking in this direction or not. But you're going to see me side scrape here in a minute. Okay, so the 60 TP has backed off, right? So I'm going to go ahead and cross the gap here, and they're not looking at me. The Wizzy just fired, and if I actually aimed better here, that would have been an easy kill shot. But I've been careful about my positioning overall, and so I can afford to eat that shot. That's another thing too. Just keeping track of your hit points and knowing when, even if you take damage, it's not going to matter. But for the most part, you should conserve your hit points very thoughtfully. It's the hardest currency to spend because once that money is gone, you don't get it back. So one tank line you guys have been asking about a lot is the STB1. So I've actually played through the tier 6 through 10s, and I'm going to be reviewing the tier 8 STA1 in the next episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts on the 140, and I'll see you soon. Take care.